Yep, sure.
Before we start with the meetup, I just want to read out the safe harbor statement. I know everybody is aware about it, but still I want to read this one more time. So both the speaker and the host, we are conducting this meetup in individual capacity only. We are not representing our employers here. We are not representing our companies here. Now, this presentation is strictly meant for learning purpose. We don't hold any responsibility if the same solution is going to work for your business requirements. Vikas is going to share his work experience, his study, his research with each of you. But I request everybody to perform a thorough analysis of your use cases or your user stories before implementing the same solution, because this presentation is not meant for any promotional activities. We will take it in the spirit of learning. That's it. So Vikas and myself, we don't hold any responsibility if same solution is going to work in every use case, because each and every scenario is different. Each and every infrastructure may be entirely different from one company to the other. Next slide, please, Vikas. So without taking further time, I want to invite Vikas to, Vikas, the stage is all yours. And thank you so much, first of all, for doing this for the community. It's a great initiative, Vikas. It's amazing topic. Many people were asking about this topic from long time. And thank you so much for doing it for the community. Stage is all yours, Vikas.
Yep. Yep. Thank you so much, Neeraj. Thank you. So, let me introduce myself. So, I'm working as a senior consultant with Infosys. Okay, and I'm a MuleSoft mentor and a MuleSoft certified integration architect. Overall, I have 12 years of integration experience across different integration product suites, ranging from IBM B2B Sterling Integrator, TIPCO, and MuleSoft. Okay, here is my LinkedIn profile, and recently I've started sharing my knowledge through a YouTube channel, Your Integration Buddy, also. So if you got some time, do check out those videos from my channel. So today's agenda. So today we will be exploring CloudHub 2.0, okay, which was like released a few months back by MuleSoft. So why do we use CloudHub 2.0? What is the architecture behind CloudHub 2.0? What are the shared spaces? What are private spaces? How is the deployment happening in this new version of CloudHub 2.0? Okay, and how do we compare the features of CloudHub 2.0 with the CloudHub 1.0? So all these things we are going to cover in this session. So after going through the a few slides, then we'll have a live demo followed by a Q&A session. Okay, in between also, if you have any questions related to the content which I am presenting, you can just ping Neeraj, and Neeraj, you can just stop me and just let me know the questions. Okay. Okay, so why this CloudHub 2.0 was introduced? Okay, so basically CloudHub 1.0 after the introduced. So, so this CloudHub 2.0 was introduced a few months back, as everyone knows. Okay, so basically, MuleSoft wanted to basically improve the more operational excellence and to keep up with the technological advancements. Basically, okay, so that's the primary reasons which I see why this CloudHub 2.0 was introduced. Okay, so they introduced a containerized deployment of the applications in CloudHub 2.0. So basically, they are leveraging the Kubernetes cluster over here. Okay, in CloudHub 2.0, so underlying architecture has been completely revamped. What we saw in CloudHub 2.0, CloudHub 1.0. Okay, so in CloudHub 1.0, we were spinning the VMs, okay, in the AWS and then deploying the applications on those VMs. But here, instead of spinning up the VMs, we'll be spinning up the containers in the pods of the Kubernetes cluster. So the underlying infrastructure has been completely changed. Okay, the underlying completely structure has been changed. So it is now EKS. EKS is the service, Elastic Kubernetes Service provided by AWS. Okay, so here it provides a more standardized isolation. Okay, so in every container, every single application will be running. Okay, so every container will be having a mule runtime in which the application will spin off. Okay, and the isolation is achieved by running the application a single container, and the containers are separated basically. Okay, so it's not like that one container will be having multiple applications in it. No, Is one app, one per container. So let me just give you just a visual uh, just to identify how it looks like. So this is the Kubernetes cluster. Basically, Kubernetes cluster consists of the nodes. So nodes are nothing but the VMs. Okay, and inside the nodes we have the pods. Okay, so what is a pod? Pod is the smallest deploy unit that can be deployed in a Kubernetes cluster. And inside the pod, we have the containers. So here is and inside the containers, the mule applications get spinned up. Okay, so this CloudHub 2.0, then it is available across 12 regions globally, similar to what we see in CloudHub 1.0. So if you compare with the cloud MuleSoft offering of RTF, basically, so the structure of this, the architecture of this Cloud Hub 2.0 is exactly the same as we saw in MuleSoft RTF. Okay, but the only difference is that in the RTF case, the customer was responsible for managing the infra, but here everything is managed by MuleSoft. Okay, you don't need to worry about how to set up the Kubernetes cluster, how to spin up the pods, how to spin up the containers, nothing. You just leave it to MuleSoft, they will manage it themselves. Okay, so here the other advantage of deploying the containerized application is like it's dynamically scalable. We can achieve the horizontal scalings. Okay, horizontal scaling, like, so suppose the number of transactions are increasing. Okay, in that case we can spin up multiple replicas. Okay, replica is nothing but spinning up multiple pods having the containers. Okay, so in the Cloud of 1.0 we were using the terminology of VMs, but here we use the terminology of pods, replicas. Okay, so multiple replicas can be spinned to achieve the horizontal scaling. And then if we are processing large payloads, then definitely vertical scaling can be achieved by increasing the vCore size. Another option that which I would say, like, to how why we should prefer CloudHub 2.0, because it offers more efficient resource utilization. Okay, so in CloudHub 1.0, like, the vCores option, like after choosing like point 1, point 2, and then we directly go to 1 core, 2 core. So but here we have more like granular vCore options to choose. Okay, we can choose point 1, point 2, point 5, like that. Okay, and maximum vCores that can be allocated to per replica is 4 vCores. Okay, another thing is that, like, another thing which was missing in CloudHub 1.0 was like clustered mode was not supported. So as you know, like the clustering was supported only on the MuleSoft, the customer hosted runtimes only. But now with this CloudHub 2.0, the applications can be deployed in a clustered mode as well. Okay, so they can share the same state across the clusters. So wherever we want, like, the same state should be maintained across the replicas. So here we can enable the clustering so that the same state can be replicated across the replicas which are part of those cluster. Then it supports features like intelligent healing. So intelligent healing means like, okay, the underlying infra got some issue, and the use of this cloud up 2.0 is intelligent enough to spin that pod on a different infra, basically. Okay, so and then there is zero downtime updates. When you're deploying the applications, we get the options to whether we want to do a rolling update which will not involve any downtime. Okay, so the existing application will still be up and running, and then on the pod, and another pod will spin up, and the application will be deployed on that port. So it will be a rolling update. You will not see any downtime. However, with the recreate option, definitely, like, it will cease or a downtime, because it will be first deleting the application and deleting the pod, and then will be recreating the pod. Okay, so we will be preferring the rolling update option in case we have the luxury of more vCores with us, because the existing application will still be utilizing the vCores, and the new version is still spinning up on the new on the a new version is just spinning up. Okay, so we'll need to have more vCores at our disposal when we are using the rolling update. However, in case of recreate, since we don't if we have like a limited number of vCores, then definitely we can just go for the recreate option, in which, like, the existing application, the pod is first removed, like vCores are emptied, and then we recreate the application in the CloudHub 2.0. Okay, so these are one of a few of the reasons, like, why the CloudHub 2.0 was introduced. Any questions, guys, before we move forward?
There is one question, because
Yeah.
Valentin is asking a question. Is there any automatic scaling, like based on the need?
Yes, yes. Automatic scaling is yes. So we have to define, okay, until which threshold. Suppose my week or utilization reaches this limit, then increase the number of week hours. Okay, so those, yes. Automatic scaling, yes. Dynamically scaling is introduced, yes.
Awesome. Thank you.
Based on the demand, it can be horizontal scaling, vertical scaling is achieved. Yes. Shall we move forward, Neeraj?
Yeah, please. Thank you. Maria is asking another question. Sorry, Vikas. Rolling
Yep.
update is there in CH 1.0 also, right?
Yes.
All right.
Yep,
Let
we can deploy it over there with zero downtime. Yes, but here the new option recreate is created because as told you, if we have limited number of vehicles, then we can afford some downtime. Then just go ahead with the recreate option. So here both the option have been provided. In CloudHub 1.0, we were not having the option to recreate the application basically.
Good question, Animesh. But price change on the production week, or it's all depends upon what's your contract with MuleSoft, like what's the licensing agreement between your organization and MuleSoft. So Vikas won't be able to help with the production week or cost here, because
No, no,
let's
no. Yeah, yeah. You
move
have to
forward.
get in touch with your customer account executive for that. Yeah.
Yeah, let's move forward. Thank you.
Sure.
Great question, guys.
Yeah, it's good to make the session interactive. Yeah, if anyone wants to unmute themselves and ask question, that is also fine, Neeraj. Okay, so here it is. So as I told previously, it is fully managed by MuleSoft, lightweight containerization, granular resource allocation. We can choose a fractional vCores, enhanced security. So in the CloudHub 1.0, we were not having the option to uh, enable the outbound firewall rules. So those new things have been introduced in CloudHub 2.0 with more enhanced security as compared to CloudHub 1.0. So here is the architecture, like is a control plane consisting of endpoint monitoring logs, object store v2, runtime manager, endpoint exchange, access management, and then here in the runtime plane, you see the worker nodes, which I just show you in that diagram. So worker nodes will be having the pods in which the container, which will be having the containers in which the applications will get spinned off. Okay, so no VMs anymore for spinning up the applications. Here we go to EKS cluster. Okay, so EKS and EKS will be containing these worker nodes, and then we will be having the containers in which the application will spin off. So if you want a detailed comparison of Cloud of 1.0 with Cloud of 1, Cloud of 2.0 and RTF, so here is the link. So it will lead us to the official documentation provided by MuleSoft. If I just click on it, so it's a very good documentation provided. So you can go through this like capabilities which were there in Cloud Up to 2.0, 1.0, and runtime fabric. So all the capabilities have been compared over here. Okay,
Would you mind
so
pinging this link in the chat, Vikas? Because I'm not
yeah,
able
yeah,
to
sure,
see it.
yeah,
Now,
sure,
I
no
have a
worries.
question for you. So, say for example, you are working on CloudHub 2.0. Do you mandatorily need to understand Kubernetes, or you don't?
No,
Okay,
no, no, we don't need to understand that. So basically, it's all everything is managed by MuleSoft for you, Neeraj. So we
okay,
don't need to worry about anything like setting up the Kubernetes cluster. No. So that thing comes into picture when you are using uh, the RTF on self-managed Kubernetes. So
okay,
RTF comes in two flavors, right? One is the RTF on appliance, okay, and second one is the RTF on self-managed Kubernetes. On self-managed Kubernetes, yes, you need to have the expertise to set up the Kubernetes cluster, okay,
okay.
but here no. And you would like to ask like, okay, why can't we go ahead with the RTF appliance, right? Why cloud hub 2.0? So the
Correct.
reason behind that, an RTF appliance also, you need to manage your infra. Okay, so and lots of people will come up and set up the AKS cluster for you, but again that will be a customer managed infra. So but here nothing, like you just pay and just use
Yes,
the service, that's it.
everything is mule managed. Awesome.
Yep. And
Hit
neither like if I
hit
go to
general.
chat, like I'm not able.
Yeah, hit general. Hit general. No, go back. Go back to the
Okay,
chat. Go back to the chat. No, you were at the
okay.
right place. Now, instead of this, you have a general, right?
General. I'm not seeing
Yeah.
attendees. I'm just seeing attendees. I can just ping you individually, baby. You can.
Okay, sure. No worries.
Not sure like why. Yeah, this is the
Yeah, I'll tell
documentation
you in the
which
end of the
I
meeting.
was.
Thank you.
Yep, sure. Okay, so here is a detailed comparison that you can just refer the document. Then coming on to the shared space and the private spaces in CloudHub 2.0. Okay, so shared space, so we can either deploy our applications to a shared space or private space. So shared space is as I is it's an elastic cloud of resources that includes mule instances running in a multi-tenant environment. So here stress on the word multi-tenant. Okay, so MuleSoft is providing one shared space or one EKS cluster per region. Okay, and that EKS cluster, that shared space will be shared by by the public. So basically every so those can be shared by different customers. Okay, it's not just limited to you. Other customers can also use that space. There is still isolation in the application point of view. Okay, it's not like that. Okay, somebody will be able to access your application. No, nothing like that. So basically, the isolation is based on the namespace, logical namespace isolation, which we call. Okay, logical namespace and your depending on your environmental ID, endpoint environment ID. So based on those two factors, the applications are isolated in the shared space. Okay, so when do we go for this shared space? When do we go? Okay, if we need to decide, okay, whether we want to deploy our application on a shared space on a private space, what are those deciding factors? So first one is when you don't require isolation from public cloud. Okay, you are okay to host your public host your applications on public cloud, just go for shared space. And then you don't need to connect to on-premises data center. Suppose you don't need any connectivity with your on-premises data center. This is nothing, no database servers, no SFTP servers, nothing is sitting on the on-premises data center. Then just go ahead with shared space. If you choose shared space, you won't be able to connect to your on-premises data centers. Okay, other than that, if you're okay to use the cloudhub.io as a domain name, okay, whatever public links we get after deploying the application, so we will be getting the cloudhub.io as a domain name. You can't customize, you can't have the vanity domain name if we deploy it on shared space. If you're okay to use, go ahead. And we don't need to configure any custom TLS certificates, and definitely like those are maintained by MuleSoft only. Now, private space. So private space is exactly similar to what we see in the VPC. It's a virtual VPC, basically virtual private and isolated logical space in CloudHub 2.0. So in which we run your app. So this is dedicated to you only. Only you can deploy your applications in that private space. Okay, it's a VPC VPC, which we used to create in Cloud Hub 1.0. So exactly similar. It's called the private space in Cloud Hub 2.0. Okay. So here you can use either the VPN or VPN to connect to the on-premises data centers. And if you want to connect multiple VPCs or multiple centers, then you can use a transit gateway as well. So this functionality was not available here. So has been introduced over here. In the shared space, it was not possible to connect to on-premises data center, but here we can connect. Then we can have the vanity domain names. Okay, so here we were using only cloud.io, but we can use the TLS context here in private space, which will define the domains which you can use to deploy the application. Then we have the luxury to allow or block the inbound and outbound traffic to your private space. And then lastly, private spaces or the VPCs, as you know, these are defined at the parents business groups level, along with the environments which you want to consider in that private space. Okay, so consider like this thing, like okay, shared space. You go to a hotel. Okay, there are already 100 rooms in that hotel, and you book one of the rooms. Okay, so it's just like isolation is still there, but yes, some of the services may be shared with other guests also. Like the waiter which is serving me may be serving other guests as well. So that is a kind of shared space. Private space, like just you just rent or own your bungalow. Okay, all the services in the inside the bungalow like or catered to you only. You control who is coming in your bungalow. You know who is whom to allow to come to under the to our bungalow. So all those things can be like all the services which are utilizing inside the bungalow are only yours, private. Basically, nobody else can use that bungalow apart from you. Okay, so this is the difference between shared space and private space. Obviously renting a bungalow will be costly more than renting a room, so definitely it's a private space is like you need to shell out more money to get the licensing cost for the private space basically as compared to shared space. Okay, so any questions guys?
No questions, Vikas. We can move forward as of now.
Okay, cool. So this is how the shared space and the private space looks like. Again, this control plane having all these elements, endpoint monitoring, object store, V2, runtime manager, endpoint exchange access management. Then it's communicating with the runtime plane on the EKS. So it's a multi-tenant because it's shared by everyone. No vanity domain supported. You have to live with cloudhub.io as a domain name. Last mile security and SSL forwarding is supported over here. So I'll come to these two terms in our demo part. And then private space. So here the same similar architecture. The only thing is that we can connect by VPNs, redundant VPN tunnels to the data center, and we can use the transit gateway to connect with the multiple VPCs and data centers basically using this private space. So here is what I was talking about in the first slide. How do we deploy? Okay, so we can choose the replica sizes over here, VCore. So you can see there, zero point 0.1, zero point 0.2, 0.5, 1, 1.5. So earlier, like in the cloud of 1.2, we were having zero point 0.1, 0.2, then 1, 2, 3 like that. But here you have fractionalized, more granular resource utilization can be done over here. Okay, you can choose zero point 0.1, 0.2, 0.5, 1, 1.5 up to 4. Okay, and number of replicas can be 1 to 8. Yep. So then there is rolling update and maintain older version of your application before it's redeployed. As I told, extra vCores will be needed for that. Recreate, terminate the old replica, deploy a new replica. It's quicker than rolling update, but here definitely, as I told you, like no extra vCores are needed. So depending on your requirement, you can choose any of these deployment models. Any questions, Neeraj?
No, Vikas. Yes, Catherine has a question. Is there a best practice depending on the scenario between rolling or recreate?
Yeah, definitely. Like Catherine, it depends on the factors basically. So you have to determine. Okay, so where the deployment, where in which you can accommodate a downtime. Okay, it's okay. Like if your application remains down for a few minutes or for some time, then recreate is the best option to go. And you're running like low on your weak core capacity also. So considering both these factors, you can choose recreate. But yes, in case of mission critical life saving applications where you can't afford a single minute downtime, then definitely you have no other option but to go for rolling update. So yep, so depending on the business requirements you have to make the decisions. Okay, Neeraj, any other question?
Yeah, Miraya has one question. Any customization is possible on allocation of vCores in CS 2.0 like runtime fabric?
Yeah, so like no, but like it's a customization. We mean like we have the predefined vcore sizes which we can choose. As far as I know, Neeraj, I don't see any customization being done. It's predefined vcore sizes that are being allocated over here, so we have to choose from them as only.
All right. Any other questions? No other questions, Vikas. We'll take them in Q&A. Let's proceed.
Sure. So I have a couple of more slides to cover, but before that, we'll just cover the demo part and then come up to the those couple of slides after this demo. So
Awesome.
what we are going to cover in this demo, okay. So how to deploy application to CloudHub 2.0? So I'll be deploying an application using 8081 port. 8081 is the port on HTTPS protocol, and I'll be deploying it using Mule Maven plugin, and I'll be using connected app for authentication purposes. Okay, and then after that I'll be checking the last mile security options and SSL forwarding options, and what is the role of exchange over here. Okay, anypoint exchange, anypoint exchange is a critical role to play in the deployment. Then we'll be doing both the deployments, rolling update and recreation, when to choose what mode, that I already elaborated on that. And checking core consumption, so when we stop the application, are the cores still getting consumed, that we will also check. So here you can ask the question, right? So HTTPS port 8081. Why I have mentioned 8081 over here? Because in CloudHub 1.0 we were having 8082 for HTTPS, right? But here it's a change basically. Okay, so if you have worked on that RTF piece, so it's similar to that. It's 8081, only on the port 8081 we can receive both the traffics, like both HTTP as well as HTTPS. There no need to be a separate port of 8082 that's needed for the HTTPS basically. Okay, so basically you will hit a ingress controller from your application, then ingress controller will be forwarding the traffic to the application. I'll show you over here in this demo. But do remember that only 8081 port is there on which you can receive the traffic on HTTPS or HTTP. If you deploy your application on 8082 port, you won't be able to receive the public traffic in CloudHub 2.0. Okay, application. Okay, so I have on the listener, I have it's a HTTPS port and listening on on the 8081 port. Okay, so here how do we deploy it then? Okay, so I'm deploying using the Mule Maven plugin. Okay, so in your Mule Maven plugin, you have to copy this configuration basically, CloudHub 2 deployment, related to CloudHub 2 deployment in this Mule, so in this pom.xml to make this deployment work. Now, from where I got this configuration, okay, so I'll ping you that link. Here it is. This is a link. Okay, so here you will see that the configuration, CloudHub 2 deployment, everything you need to copy in your pom.xml. And you have to remember that this Mule Maven plugin needs to be at least 3.7.1 or more for this deployment to happen on CloudHub 2.0. Okay, so here I'm using the version 3.8.1, and then what are the different values we need to pass over here? We'll just go through them one by one very quickly. So URI, as you already know, like https anypoint.mulesoft.com. Provider is Mulesoft Container MC. Which environment we want to deploy? Is it a sandbox environment? What is the target name? Okay, so target name will be the shared space name basically. Okay, and since I'm using a trial count, so trial count only allows the deployment on this shared space only. That's it. You can't choose any other shared space. If you choose any other space, your deployment will fail. So CloudHub US East 2 is the only shared space on which the deployments are happening in the trial account as of now. Mule runtime version. So another important thing to note here is that CloudHub 2.0 only supports the Mule version 4.3 and above. We can't deploy the applications using Mule version lower than 4.3. Here, server, my connected application. I'll come to that part. This is the application name, demo meet 25. I want to spin it on two replicas, and this is the vcores point one vcore I want to allocate to them. Okay, so now my connected application. What is this? So this is a connected app I have created in my Anypoint platform. Okay, let me just show you over there as well. So I'll connect the dots. Okay, so connected apps. This is the my connected application that I have created in the under connected app. So you have to refer this. Using this connected app, you will be deploying it to CloudHub 2.0. So whenever you are deploying it using the connected app, you have to make sure that connected app has the relevant scopes and added under it. So what are those scopes? Okay, let me just quickly show you those as well. So you need to make sure that connected apps is should be able to create the applications, delete application, manage application, delete, read the applications. All these permissions should be assigned to the connected apps. Only then your deployment can work. Okay, so this is where I have referred that my connected application is the name of the connected apps. Then another important thing we would like to note over here is that, like in CloudHub 1.0, we were defining the secure properties in the mule artifact.json file, but here you can directly define it in the pom.xml. Okay, so I have just I'm just securing the HTTP port 8081 as a secure property. I'll show you once its deployment is completed where it will show in the runtime manager. Okay, so this part is related to the CloudHub 2.0, and then another part is this distribution management. Okay, so this you I have copied from the use of documentation as well. Here the ID is same, which is my connected application. Okay, this is the connected apps, and then the URL HTTP Maven Independent Platform, blah blah blah. V2 organizations. Here project ID, project.group ID. So project.group ID I have defined above. So project is a root element. So project.group ID. This is the value of the group ID. So from where I have got this, I'll show you over here. Just go to the Anypun platform. Here is the group ID. You need to copy. Okay. So these changes you have to make in your pom.xml in order to deploy it to CloudHub 2.0. Another important thing is that under this .m2 folder which is created by Maven, like you have to create this settings.xml file. Okay, so what to do in settings.xml file? So in settings.xml file, again you have to mention the connected apps name. ID is my connected application, user standard like it's a client only, but in the password you have to copy the client ID and password from connected apps. So if I go over here again to that connected apps. Okay. So here is the ID, here is a secret that I have added in my settings.xml. See, this is the ID, and then there's a format to add it, basic tilde, question mark tilde, and then there is the password basically. So these I have got from here. Okay. Okay. So now we are ready to deploy. We have made the necessary changes, and now we should be able to deploy it. But before deploying it, I would like to tell you one thing that we before we deploy it to the CloudHub 2.0 in the runtime manager, before it the application has to be deployed to Anypoint Exchange. Okay, so using this command ambient clean deploy, let's deploy it to Anypoint Exchange. Okay, so I'll just you have to use this URL. So why to deploy an Anypoint Exchange? I'll let you in a moment. I'll let you know in a moment. Okay. So I have got wait a second. What is the URL? This is the Anypoint URL. You have to pass the query parameters over here. Type is equal to app and show is equal to all. Okay, I'll just go over here. Okay. Okay. So build success finished. So let us check the exchange. Wait a second, something wrong. This URL. Okay. So you see, the app has come over here, and it was just published 30 seconds ago. And latest version is 1.0.1.0.8. So this is the same version which we have mentioned over here, 1.0.8. Okay. Now you may ask the question, okay, so why we have published this to exchange? So there is a new functionality which is being introduced over here, that in CloudHub 2.0 we can roll back to the previous versions of the deployed app. So basically, Exchange is being used for that purpose to maintain the versions. So from where did the runtime manager will pull the previous versions of the app? It will pull from the Exchange. So that is why it is mandatory to first upload it to Exchange and then deploy it. Okay. So now we'll use this command dmul deploy to deploy it to the runtime manager. So let's go over here, runtime manager. Okay, there are no applications right now, so it's getting deployed. So we have to first go to Exchange, and then from Exchange it has to go to runtime manager. We can take up any questions in the meanwhile this application is getting deployed, Neeraj.
Yeah, sure, Vikas. Anybody if has any questions, please feel free to ping on the chat. So Suja has one question. In RTF, Exchange's default repo, is it the same for CloudHub 2.0?
Right. So with repo is yes, Exchange the default repo for here as well. Yes. So as I told, like, sorry, it's using the same architecture as we use in RTF. So yes, so same case in CloudHub 2.0. It will be using the for maintaining the versions. Yep, it will be using the Exchange. Yes. So now it's getting deployed. I'll just go inside it. You will see now we the public and oh sorry, any other question, Neeraj, before we move forward?
No, Vikas, no.
Okay, cool. So I'll just explain all these tabs over here: deployment, target, ingress, properties, logging. Okay. So here, in the meantime, the application gets deployed. Let's go through these quickly. So here is the public endpoint that we will use to access the application. Target name, if you see, it's the same shared space name CloudHub US is 2, which we defined in our pom.xml. Configuration. So here is the important thing: configuration. We will be maintaining multiple configurations or multiple versions of the application. Okay, so using the configurations, we can we can choose which configurations to deploy. Okay, so now this configuration is this. Okay, you see, this is last successful at 9:19, just 1 minute back. So this is the config defined for this. If I go to the logs, you will see over here the same config written over here. And the important thing to note over here is that logs are kept up to 30 days. So and 100 MB per config. So in CloudHub 1.0 it was 100 MB for the complete application, but here 100 MB for each configuration of the application that we'll be maintaining over here. Okay, so we go back to the runtime manager. So okay, so it's now coming to the running status. Before we test it out, I'll just quickly walk you through with other terms over here. So deployment target, as I told you, it is supporting only 4.3 and above, and we are deploying it on 4.4.0. Replica size we defined it on pom.xml. It's zero point 0.1 vcore, and you can go up to 4 vcores. So there is no option to customize any vcores, basically, as someone was asking, right? So we have the only these limited options, like starting from zero point 0.1 to 4. We can choose according to our requirement. Replica count, I have choose 2 as a replica count, and we can go up to 8. Cluster mode, so clustering is enabled in is supported in CloudHub 2.0, and we can use object store v2 service as well. So we can choose this clustering mode when we want to replicate the same state across our replicas, and it requires at least 2 replicas to form a cluster. So other thing, you will see that the missing persistent VMQ service over here. Okay, so the persistent VMQ service is not supported in CloudHub 2.0. So deployment model, again, it's rolling update or recreate depending on our requirement. We can choose that. Ingress. So as I told, like the traffic will be routed to first the ingress controller, and then from there it will be routed to the application. Here is the public at endpoint. So if you see over here, let me just copy that. Copy this. Okay, so here you will see how this public endpoint is made basically. So demo meet 25 was my app name. This is a unique ID that is getting appended to every application. And then this is a shard ID. So shard ID is nothing but it's a specific unique ID assigned to a shared space. Based on a shared space, this shard ID gets appended. And then this is our USA2 is our region, and then cloud.io is the default domain name. Okay, so if I just put it over simple over here, Google app name and the unique ID. Okay, and then we'll be having the shard ID, and then the region, and then cloudhub.io. Okay, but so in the cloudhub 1.2, it was only having the app name dot region dot cloudhub.io. Okay, so you will see this difference here. So we have the ingress options to path rewrite. Okay, so we have the option available to path rewrite. So what does path rewrite means? Okay, so here it is. The path rewrite means that, wait a second. So we suppose our HTTP listener is listening on the path API demo. Okay, so we can rewrite in the ingress controller to listen it on API demo updated, like that. So the request coming over onto this path will be routed to this API demo. So that is where what it's meant by uh, path rewrite. Forward SSL session and last mile security, I will touch base once we test this application. And coming on to the properties, since you see, like in that prom.xml, we passed this http.port uh, in the part of secure properties. So you see over there, no value will be populated, only protected value will be shown over here. Okay, the secure properties have come over here now. And logging in similar to what we saw in the CloudHub 1.0. Okay. So now, yeah, let's quickly test this application. Just this URL. It was demo was the, you see that it's not working right now. Okay, I'm sending a request to my HTTPS port to my application on HTTPS port at 8081. Anybody knows what might be the possible reason why it is not working? Any idea, guys?
Suja is saying because of the ingress.
Okay, so what we need to do to make it work?
Enable last mile security.
Yep,
That's what Suja is saying.
that's correct. Yes, yes, that's correct. So we have to enable the last mile security. I'll just apply the changes. So what last mile security, when we have not enabled the last mile security, the SSL offloading was done at the ingress controller level. So HTTPS request came on ingress, it then SSL was offloaded, the request was converted to HTTP, and it went to port 881 on HTTP port. Since my application was deployed on HTTPS, so this request got failed. So when we deploy this security, we enable the last mile security. So here you see that the HTTPS will be the SSL offloading won't be done over here. It will be redirected to the app level. So here now HTTPS request came to ingress and it passed the same HTTPS to 8081. So now we will see we should be able to access. So let us see first it is deployed. It's it's still applying the changes. So let's wait for a few seconds. I think it should be done. Okay.
Neeraj, let me ask
So
you one.
generally like this last, yeah, Neeraj.
So Bhushan is asking one question. API auto discovery concept, oh sorry, API discovery concept is there to connect the runtime manager and API manager auto discovery. It's the same concept available there in case of managing API, applying policy or discovering. Do we have same
Yeah,
concept
I
in
don't.
CloudHub 2.0
Mm,
or any changes on API manager?
as far as I have read, Neeraj, like I have not come across any changes across how the API management works. Okay, it should work as is Cloud of 1.2, but as far as I have gone through this documentation and I have not come across all that like that anything related specifically to through API auto discovery or API management. Although like some things like Flex Gateway and all those things, those are not supported. But yes, API manager applying the policies, it should work as it was working in Cloud of 1.0.
Awesome.
Let me quickly check it this article as well.
Debu is asking a question. If we have used
Yeah.
persistent VMQ, then after deployment where data will get stored as persistent VMQ is not supported. So persistent VMQs are supported in CloudHub 2.0 or not?
Yep, I'll come to that, Kuniraj. Yep, I'll come to that. I'll cover this question after this demo. Yes, I'll cover that.
Awesome.
I'll cover that shortly.
Srini
Okay.
is saying how this is different from one application with two workers. Like you created two replicas, right? In CloudHub 2.0. How this is different from two workers in CloudHub 1.0. So there you can define number of
Okay.
workers.
Yep. I'll come to that. Yes, I'll just show you this. So now, after enabling the last mile security, as Suja said, she correctly told. So we have passed to the ingress controller. This was a message which I wrote in that application. We are able to access this application successfully. So generally, like this SSL, last mile security is enabled in case of the one-way SSL, and for enabling the two-way SSL, in which both client and server require authentication. For that cases, SSL session forwarding needs to be enabled. Okay. Now coming on to the first question, uh, uh, that state management, right? So the persistent queue service, right?
Yeah,
Somebody was talking
persistent
about that, right?
VMQs.
Yep. So here it is. I have to cover that. Okay. Okay, fine. So there is a misconception saying that no persistent queues are supported. No, persistent queues are supported. Only the persistent queue service is not supported. So you have to understand the difference over here. So CloudHub 1.0, this is the difference between CloudHub 1.0 deployments and CloudHub 2.0. So let us quickly go through it. So at CloudHub 1.0, you will see that it is mandatory to use OS v2, Object Store v2 as a service. So when it's always enabled, you don't have the option to deselect that. And but here we will have the option to deselect or select that. Okay, and here we can use persistent queues, and here the persistence use enabled. Okay, so here in CloudHub 1.0, when we have OS v2 and no persistent queues enabled, so you see that both the workers are not sharing anything. Okay, so here the since we are using the OS v2 service, so it is getting stored in the stored by the MuleSoft. So it's not is providing the service, it's not utilizing the either the memory or the local disk of the VM. When we enable the persistent queues, so now both the transient as well as the persistent queues move to this persistent queue service. Okay, but still again the same case with OSV2, like from the from this model. So the non-persistent object store still remains in the memory. Okay, and this, since there is no clustering, so important thing, the clustering was not supported in CloudHub 1.0. You don't see them sharing any state. If this worker goes down, like we can't pick up from there where it left. The processing of the things can't be picked up from where it left. They are working in silos. Okay. Now CloudHub 2.0, non-clustered and no OSV2. Non-clustered means nothing they will share. No OSV2 enabled. No OSV2 enabled. It means that the persistent and non-persistent object store and persistent and the non-persistent or the transient queues and the non-persistent object store will be using the available memory JVM heap, and the persistent queues and persistent object store will be utilizing the pod disk. When we have clustered, so clustered, you see the state is getting shared using the Hazelcast mechanism. So Hazelcast mechanism, I'm sure like you might be aware of that. So Hazelcast mechanism is used to replicate the states across the replicas. Okay, so here if this cluster goes replica goes down, the cluster 2 can pick up from where we can pick up the processing on the cluster 2 where it left. Okay, so the state is getting shared between the two replicas. And now here, CloudHub 2.0, non-clustered and OSV2 is there. Non-clustered means nothing will be shared, and OSV2 service similar to CloudHub 1.0, only persistent object store will be supported. Clustered and object store v2. So clustered means the transient and persistent queues will be using the memory. Okay, it's using the Hazelcast replication mechanism. And then since we have enabled the OS v2 service, so persistent object store will move to this supported by OS v2 service, and non-persistent will still remain in the memory. Okay, so persistent queue service is not there in CloudHub 2.0, although persistent and non-persistent queues are there. I hope I'm able to answer the question.
I think pretty clear, Vikas.
Cool. Okay. So now going to the other question was that how is it different from spinning the workers basically, right? As spinning of the replicas and spinning of the clusters, right?
Correct.
That was the question, Neeraj. Okay.
Yes.
So here the difference is in the terminology and the underlying architecture basically. Okay. So that architecture of Cloud of 1.0 that was like spinning the VMs, EC2 instances basically. I would be specific. EC2 instances were spinned up. So EC2 instances in AWS, basically those get spinned up. Okay, those were the virtual VMs or EC2 instances that were getting spinned up for every worker basically. Okay, but here the pod is getting spinned up for that replica. Okay, so here we have the Kubernetes cluster. Inside we have the VMs, and then under the VMs we have the pods. So these now, instead of the workers, we are using pods, and which are having the containers in which the applications are deployed. So here is a change in the terminology because there is a change in the underlying architecture. So there in Cloud 1.2 we were having workers which were spinning on EC2 instances. Here we have the replicas which are spinning on the pods basically. I
Thank
hope
you.
I'm able to answer your question.
Thank you, Vikas. Let's move forward. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Okay, uh, so we have checked the exchange, and okay, now there is another misconception I have read many times. Okay, I have heard many times as well that okay, if we stop the application, the codes are still getting consumed. Okay, so let's quickly check that as well. So now I'll just go to my access management and just check my subscription over there, see how many codes are getting consumed. You see, zero point 0.2 vcores are getting consumed because there are two replicas which are spent, each having zero point 0.1 vcore. Let me just go over there and stop it. Okay, it's not running now. Let me go back again to access management, time manager. You see, the applications are stopped and vcores are not getting consumed. Okay, so as a part of this demo, we have covered all the aspects here: deploying the application, last mile security, exchange, runtime manager, rolling update, recreation, and checking core consumption. So that was all about shared space basically. So in our trial account, which I'm currently using, is like it allows us only the shared space deployments only. So coming over, I have some screen capture for the private space, which we can quickly, I can just show you how the things look like in the private space, basically. I'll just zoom in a bit. Okay, so here private space is exactly similar to what we were having the VPC in the virtual private cloud in the CloudHub 1.0. We define a CIDR block. Okay, so those who are not aware of the CIDR block, so I'll just refer them one of the sites which is very good, cider.xyz. So here is a CIDR block which we can just fill up the values over here. Okay, and then we will just using this. So we'll just put in this the range of the IPs which we need to consider for this CIDR block, and you see that we can have, using this range 10.1.0.1/22, we can have 1024 IPs available for us in that CIDR block. Okay, so those CIDR block will constitute a subnet basically. Okay, and that subnet will be entirely ours. Only we can deploy the applications in that subnet. So that will constitute the shared space, sorry, private space. Okay, so this, you see the range of the IPs: first usable IPs, last usable IP. So it is very important to note over here is that only once you can define a CIDR block, or you can create a CIDR block. Okay, once it is defined or once it is created, you cannot go and edit it. So based on your the requirement, based on the number of apps you are currently having, and based on the week of consumption of the number of week or and the number of apps, so considering various factors, you have to come up with the number. Okay, like only this is a CIDR block which will fulfill my current requirements as well as the requirements going forward as well. Only then you can create, you should be creating and this CIDR block. Okay, because tomorrow if you want, like, okay, this CIDR block is reaching this capacity and not able to fulfill my requirements, so you need to create another one, then a bigger one, then there'll be downtime in migrating the applications from one subnet or CIDR block to another. So this is a very important consideration you have to keep in mind. Okay, so here we create a CIDR block. It will allocate a subnet to us. Then there is a DNS target, is a public URL that we will use to access it. And here is the inbound static IPs and outbound static IPs. Okay, so inbound static IPs and outbound static IPs are a new concept over introduced here in the CloudHub 2.0. So here you can in our CloudHub 1.0, you will be having the inbound static IPs and outbound static IPs based on the app level. Okay, but here these are based on the private space level. So suppose there is, you're connecting to some SFTP server and which needs your IP to whitelist, you can just provide this outbound static IPs to them, and you should be able to whitelist, and you should be able to whitelist these static IPs, and you should be able to make a connection from the private space to that SFTP server. Okay, so these static IPs are defined at the private space level instead of the app level, which was in the Cloud 1.0. It was app level. Now it is the private space level. To put in simple words. Another thing is that the VPC peering and the direct connect, it is not supported in CloudHub 2.0. So we are supporting only here the transit gateway as well as the VPN. So VPN you can use to connect to your on-premises data center, and transit gateway you can use to connect to different VPCs or uh, different VPCs and different data centers. So here is how the VPC connection looks like. So here it is. So the transit gateway looks like, so you have multiple VPCs connected to transit gateway, and it is connected via IPsec tunnel with the customer network. Okay, so both these options are self-service. So with CloudHub 2.0, like MuleSoft is making us more self-service, to making us more self-service. So we can just no need to involve any MuleSoft product support to setting and get their support in setting up the transit in setting up the direct connect or VPC peering. So these two things basically, uh, the transit gateway and VPN, we can set up ourselves. Okay, so in nutshell, the VPC peering and direct connect are not supported in CloudHub 2.0. Okay, okay. Uh, okay, yeah. So coming on to this architecture, so these things we already covered. So basically, we have a CIDR block, TLS context, custom domains, last mile security, SSL forwarding. Okay, so these are the inbound static IPs defined as NAT gateway. Okay, so NAT gateway will be defining the outbound static IPs, and their network load balancer will be setting over this subnet, which will be routing the traffic to all the ingress controllers basically. And there will be agent sitting it over here in the runtime plane, which will be coordinating through mutual TLS with the control plane. Okay, so all these apps and are deployed on the ports will be communicating via mutual TLS with the control plane. And here, the VPN and the transit gateway are will be available in the private space connectivity. Okay, private space can talk via VPN or transit gateway to the data centers and other VPCs. So here is the CloudHub 1.0 and 2.0 comparison. So I have referred the same article which I pinned in the chat. So the same article, and it talks about all these features. So I've chosen some of the main important ones from there. So Object Store, it's supported in both the versions of CloudHub 1.0 and 2.0. VPC supported in both. VPN supported in both. Transit Gateway, it's supported in both. High availability, yes, you can spin up multiple replicas as you used to spin multiple workers in CloudHub 1.0. Clustering, obviously it's not supported in CloudHub 1.0, but yes, it is supported in CloudHub 2.0. Outbound firewall rules. Okay, outbound firewall rules were not supported in CloudHub 2.0, but sorry, CloudHub 1.0. But yes, you can define, you can limit where you are sending your outbound traffic in CloudHub 2.0. The deployment rollback, very interesting feature over here. Okay, so there was no option to go back to the previous versions if something went wrong with our current version. Okay, but here you have the endpoint exchange, you support you to get the previous versions and deploy it. Data graph, as of now, it's not supported. VPC peering, it's not supported in CloudHub 2.0. Persistent VMQ service, it's not supported in CloudHub 2.0. CloudHub connector for getting the custom notifications, like that is not also not supported. Direct connect is also not supported in CloudHub 2.0. Static IP addresses, yes, those were supported in CloudHub 1.0 at app level, but here now they are supported at private space level. Then inbound firewalls, yes, those were supported in CloudHub 1.0 and those continue to be supported in CloudHub 2.0. In summary, yep, so it provides a consistent, very experience in using the CloudHub 2.0. It simplifies the networking, more fine-grained resourcing, so we can choose a fractional vCores. Okay, new deployment options are introduced over here, the recreate and the rolling update, and it's easy to use as well. So no need of managing any infra, or no need to get any expertise on the Kubernetes cluster. The MuleSoft will take care of everything for you. And here is a really useful links. You can request a 2-day training from the MuleSoft using this link, and you can refer to the docs.mulesoft.com cloudhub/2 for to get more information on this CloudHub 2.0. So I had tried to answer all these questions. In case it's still not clear to you, please ask. So we have covered rolling update, recreation. What is our understanding? Why CloudHub 2.0 was introduced? What is private space, shared space? How many regions are supported? Can we achieve horizontal vertical scaling? What are the Muse runtime versions supported? Does Muse CloudHub 2.0 support persistent VMQ service? So all these things we have covered in this session. Yeah, that's a wrap up. Yep, thank you so much. And yep, if we have any questions, we can take them up.
Great presentation, I would say, because amazing content.
Thank you, Neeraj.
Uh, we have a feedback from Suja. Vikas, you are covering each and every minor concept with simple examples. Very well prepared, excellent presentation, and clear delivery. I cannot expect this much coverage in one session. Keep it up. I think amazing job, Vikas.
Yeah, thank
I
you,
also did not expect
thank you.
this much, and I didn't expect that you are gonna go to these granular levels and give real life small examples. Uh, Vikas, amazing job there. We have one question from
Thank
Bipin.
you. Yeah,
Uh,
sure.
as persistent VMQ service is not supported, does it mean we cannot use VMQs to distribute the load? I think you already answered this question. Maybe if
Yeah,
you
I
can.
answered. Yes. We can use. Yep. This service is not supported, but yes, persistent and non-persistent queues are no, transient queues are supported. It's only service is not supported.